Are you ready to dive into the world of premium party planning with the mastermind behind Scottsdale Bachelorette? You're smart, you're motivated, you want to do something big. You're on the verge of being a young boss, and we're going to help you get there. I'm your host, Isabel Garino, and welcome to the Young Boss Podcast, where youth is your power. Today, I welcome Casey Hohman, who turned his innovative side hustle into the go-to destination for bachelorette parties in Scottsdale. With a background in tech startups and a passion for creating unforgettable experiences, Casey has revolutionized the scene with unique, authentic, and sustainable party solutions. From decorating to concierge services, Casey and his dynamic team have orchestrated over 1,000 setups, transforming ordinary celebrations into extraordinary memories. Casey, welcome to the Young Boss Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so happy you're here.
I'm so excited.
We already did a whole episode before this,
Yes.
right? Because I had so many questions and things to ask you about. And I think that this is the most genius business plan ever.
Thank you.
What made you even think about this or have it come to life?
Yeah, I mean, I've had family members that have been entrepreneurs and kind of started up businesses. And so it's always kind of been in the back of my mind, like, why not me?
Yeah.
You know, it's not something that you need any special skills or anything for. It just takes the guts to do it, I think, in a lot of ways. And so I had noticed, a lot of bachelorette parties starting to come to Scottsdale. This was like December of 2018. And I kind of had this idea of, well, I'm local, like I could help, I could help plan where to go and what to do and those types of things. And so that's kind of where I had the idea for the business was, when I'm going on a trip, somewhere else in the country or in the world, like that's the thing I hate doing is like figuring out, well, where are we supposed to go? What am I supposed to check out?
Yeah.
It takes hours and hours and days and weeks of research to figure that out. So I thought that's something that I could help with. And that's sort of where the business started. Yeah. And then, it just kind of has evolved over time.
It's so awesome because I was sharing with you right earlier. I'm like, every bachelorette party I've gone to, we have to pack 2 extra suitcases. We've got all these decorations and then we have to hide the bride for a couple hours so we can decorate, right? And it just becomes this whole ordeal. With your experiences, they're walking in. Everything is ready to go, right?
Yes. In most cases, we're able to get in before they check in to the Airbnb. So
that's awesome.
That's amazing.
Do you also, what are the companies that you can partner with to make it a seamless experience?
It's really endless. I mean, I think when it comes down to it, we partner with anybody that's in this space, right? Mm-hmm. So everything from Airbnb hosts to at-home experiences to local bars and restaurants to, excursions, people that provide all these things. It's like anything that you would do during your bachelorette weekend, we can partner with and help them with.
Has there been experiences where girls come in and they say, hey, we want this thing, and you didn't have a partnership and then you go out and make it happen?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm trying to think of something that comes to mind when it comes to that, but I guess strippers would be a good example where it's like, we didn't really have like a stripper partner. Yeah. Like we didn't have any of our own, and certainly wasn't something I was going to do. So, I kind of did my research and found a company. And so that's a lot of times a good way to start a partnership. It's like, oh, great, we found somebody. If it's a good experience, then we can send you some more business in the future.
Instead of calling and being like, hey, can I put this on my list of services? If you have the demand right away.
Exactly.
Okay, very cool. And then, I'm sure that all of these companies, as they work with you more and more, you're bringing them more business, putting their name out there. Now when these girls who are mostly from out of town, I'm presuming.
100% of them are not from here. Yeah.
Okay, so they're not from here. Then when they come back on a trip 2 years later, 5 years later, they're like, oh, we had the best time at this restaurant when we went there. And now they're getting even more business.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Do you own any of the hosting locations, the Airbnbs?
I haven't got into that yet. It's been something I've been interested in, but I sort of stayed in my lane. I feel like there's so much room to grow in other places within the business that, property management and owning the property and designing it and all those things aren't something that is really my niche. So I'm leaving that to the other people to do it. And there's so many great ones in Arizona. So it's not something we're doing right now, but.
When someone comes to book your services, do you kind of suggest Airbnbs, or do a lot of times they come with, hey, we're staying here?
A little bit of both. One thing about our website is because we are Scottsdale Bachelorette, we're sort of the first thing that people find when they start their planning process, which is great for us.
Okay.
And so if they decide to book and use our services, great. But if we can funnel them into other things that they might do, whether it's where they stay or where they eat or the activities that they do, we've tried to find a way, like, is there a way that we can monetize that as a referral? Or is there a way that we can strike up a partnership so that it's reciprocal? So for instance, on our website, we have a list of about 35 what we call preferred Airbnbs. And these are partners that have agreed to refer our services to their guests whenever they book with them. And in exchange, we put them on our website to drive them bookings as well.
Love that.
So no money's exchanged, but it's a way to say, hey, these are, and there are certain qualifications, of course, to be like, okay, you've got to be close to Old Town Scottsdale. You've got to have great design, amazing reviews. You're bachelorette friendly when it comes to these groups.
Yeah.
And if they check all those boxes and agree to refer our services to their guests, then we'll add them to our website and drive them traffic as well.
Very cool. Now, Scottsdale has become one of the hottest bachelorette markets. I think you said
Number two in the U.S.
In the U.S. That is crazy. When you think about that, and I think COVID probably helped a ton.
It did.
Because, right, they said, come to Zona, get the Rona, right? We were like, keep it open, baby. Come on over. But nowadays, if I go out in Scottsdale, I mean, I'm pregnant right now, so I'm not going out very often. But, you know, when I have gone out, it's like there's bachelorettes everywhere.
Yeah.
So how has COVID helped, and how has just Scottsdale rising in the ranks of becoming such a hot spot helped your business?
Well, COVID helped tremendously. Like you said, it was 2021, actually, it was whenever we started, people started getting vaccinated, but sort of the months leading up to that, people had to redirect their bachelorette parties if they wanted to have it from somewhere like Vegas or San Diego or something like that to Scottsdale.
Yeah.
So I think that, the fact that for better or for worse, that the requirements and the mandates were so lax, it actually helped put Scottsdale on the map as a destination for young people to go and party and have a good time.
Yeah.
I think a lot of locals knew about the nightlife and the restaurant scene and things like that, but they weren't, people weren't coming here and then sharing that experience on Instagram and TikTok and things like that until COVID happened. And so that was really the time when people, you're getting all these people that have never been to Scottsdale and they've heard about it, and other people have gone and had a great time. And then all of a sudden now it's becoming this trend of going here for their bachelorette party weekend, not only for the great restaurants and nightlife and activities, but the weather, the warm weather, the sun, the pool, the amazing Airbnbs, all the reasons why we love living here. People are coming now and discovering that to visit.
Are you seeing any requests for bachelor parties?
Not so much, which is...
They don't want penises everywhere?
They don't. They don't want a giant groom hanging above their bed, groom. So it's different, I think, and that's what's great about the market that we work with is they do a lot of planning, and this is a much bigger social lifetime event for women than it is for the men when they get married, right? Yeah. For the guys, they're like lucky if they've got, a backpack with, enough underwear for the weekend and no restaurant reservations. It's ordering pizza, going golfing, going out, kind of winging it for a lot of the weekend. Yes. And for the women, and why it's such a great market for us, is they do the planning, they have the matching outfits, they make sure that their itinerary is down to the T, they're willing to spend the money, and that's just made a really great business for us.
I love that. It's almost just, you could say, oh, we offered this and this and this, but it's like staying in your lane.
Yeah. And I listened to one of your episodes where you talked about that. And it's 100% true. And we've sort of navigated, I created an offshoot brand called Destination Scottsdale. And I was like, okay, well, people are obviously coming here for bachelorette parties. I'm sure that they're coming for birthday parties and other celebrations and things like that. And it just became, there wasn't as much excitement around that. It's like, we had such a great market that, when it comes down to do I work on a different brand, or do I branch out into a different city, or things like that, all of the excitement and passion is around Scottsdale and the bachelorette scene. And so my mind shifts to okay, well, where am I going to spend my time and energy? Is it going to be on this other market and this other group that I'm trying to squeeze, some juice from, or is it from this really great market that we already have, and how can we go deeper with them? Yeah.
What is some of things that you wish you knew in the beginning that you know now, and you're like, oh, I wish someone would have told me this?
I think a couple things, and when I started my entrepreneurial journey, I was working full time for a tech startup called Homelight, which is a real estate tech company. I worked with Michelle there, who you know. Yeah. It kind of came down to making this decision of leaving and doing this full time and taking the entrepreneurial journey full time. And obviously that was something I was really scared about. And when I first started, I was doing everything myself. And
what did that look like? Were you literally greeting the girls at the door, walking them to the club? Or it's you were just planning it all and
planning it. So we don't really deal with them while they're here. It's more of the planning, the setting up. And then at the end of the weekend, we break down and pick everything up. But it was really literally myself in, boxes in my car, and going to the house and setting up the decorations and leaving and texting them them and saying it's done and, all these things to let them know that. But I think going back to, transitioning from, going from a full-time corporate job to doing it as an entrepreneur, I wasn't sure what I needed to do and how to make that happen. And so I ended up getting a coach, a business coach that helped me through it and helped me, really plan. And two of the most important things that she taught me were to automate and delegate. And so the automation is like, okay, well, what are you doing that can be automated by technology? So if I'm sending an email for every single client that's coming up and that's a task on my to-do list, how can that be automated? Or the booking process, right? How can we automate the booking process so that we can do more of them and it's not a manual task anymore? And of course, delegating. So I think those are two things that, and I think when you're starting off, you want to do everything yourself. You're afraid to let go. And I think that's something that I really learned and wish would have done sooner. It would have helped me scale faster, because there was a time where I was like, we can't take any more bookings. We're at capacity. I was turning away business. But by doing that, I would have been able to take on more faster.
Okay. I love it. Automation and delegation. And I think it's been so fun. Almost every guest we have says get a mentor, get a coach, get someone who helps you out. And it's so true, because you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
And either you're going to burn yourself on all these mistakes, or maybe somebody can help you get through them a little bit faster, right? And it's an expense up front and it's a commitment up front, but it's one of those things that can really help you grow a lot faster.
Yeah, I had the initial conversation. Actually, it was another partner company that I, had worked with. They're called Sprinkled with Pink, and the owner's name was Kendra. They sell gift bags and types of apparel and things like that for bachelorette parties. And she had said, yeah, I know, I was kind of in the same boat as you, where I was working, for a finance company, and I wanted to take my business full time. So she's like, but I talked to this business coach, Kara Duffy, and she helped me. And so I had the initial call with the coach, and I was kind of like, I don't, thank you, but that's a lot of money for me, And then when I kind of thought more about taking it full time, I said, you know what, if I'm going to do this, I better do it right. Because I want to make it successful. So it ended up being one of the best decisions I made.
Okay. I want to hear about Palm Springs because you branched out. Tried to open in Palm Springs. You're not there anymore. Tell us what happened.
Absolutely. So I think, we had such amazing success in Scottsdale. That, the next, a lot of people were asking well, are you going to do this in other cities? Is it going to become a thing in other cities? So I thought, why don't I try it? Palm Springs isn't that far. It's, a 5.5 hour drive or an hour plane ride, if that.
And a very similar location to Phoenix. Yes,
very similar in that the weather, the climate, that type of thing, right? I started so I instead of Scottsdale Bachelorette, I called it Epic Bachelorette, thinking, okay, if this works out, I can do Epic Bachelorette Palm Springs, Epic Bachelorette Miami, all these other places, right? So that was probably I think it was December of 2019. So we let it run for now a couple years. And just within the last month, we've decided to basically shut it down. I think the reason was, I put all of this time and energy and effort into Scottsdale that when it came to Palm Springs or just another market, it just didn't capture my attention and, energy as much. And I didn't put as much into it. And, at the end of the day, the market isn't the same as it is here in Scottsdale. Right? There's the things that people do there. The nightlife isn't the same. The activities aren't the same. Where the Airbnbs are located aren't the same. People are staying in, 30 to 45 minutes outside of the core of Palm Springs. So it opened up all these logistical challenges as well as just not seeing the demand that we had hoped for. And so we, basically I decided, hey, I'd rather put that time and effort into going deeper in Scottsdale. And I think that was something that I was really proud of in a lot of ways. It's it didn't work out, but I tried it. And I kind of learned from that to say, okay, well, where do I want to take this business? Maybe it's not to a bunch of other cities. Maybe it's about, finding more ways to go deeper in the city that I'm already in.
And being right? Which you already are, but I mean, really even expanding that more. But I love that actually, because not every failure is a failure.
Absolutely.
That's a super important learned lesson, because I would assume that everyone who talks to you and once they hear about your business is like, oh, you should do Nashville, you should do Austin, you should do this. And you're just like, okay. But it is true. If you are there, you're able to make those relationships a lot easier.
Exactly.
Your staff probably has those relationships, right? And when it's out of sight, out of mind, it's not going to come to the same, fruition. And also, you're right. It is, they're similar, but it is a different market.
It is, absolutely.
Just as Nashville is a different market, right? Just as, Fort Lauderdale is a different market, like wherever you want it to go.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. So we're sticking in Scottsdale, baby.
Yes.
I love it. Okay, so tell me a little bit about hiring and staffing. Like, who was the first person you brought on? When did you realize you needed to bring someone on? And what does that look like?
Yeah. So at first it was just, I need people to help me do these setups, right? And I need, so I picked one of my old coworkers that I was working with. I was like, hey, are you free like Thursday and Friday evening to help me set up these parties? And they're like, yeah, sure, I can help you.
Yeah.
They're still actually with the company today. But from there, it was like, okay, now let's get another person. And what we quickly found was that, by adding more people on, we're able to get the jobs done faster, which means we could do more in a given amount of time, right? So instead of doing like 2 parties in one evening, we were now doing 4 in one evening. And this is when I still had a full-time job. Now we're doing like 30 to 40 a week.
Wow.
So it's, by adding on more people and training them right and having the resources, right? So we had to buy 2 vans. We had to do all these things to scale up to that.
Yeah.
But, I think that it's about finding people that are willing to hustle, that are interested in this line of work, and that are just, really passionate about creating these experiences for bachelorette parties too.
I love it. Do you have set themes, or do they get to pick their own?
Yeah. So we do have set themes.
Okay.
And then we also have something called choose your own theme. So I'll kind of maybe tell a little bit of the story behind that, because it's kind of interesting. So I mentioned, like, when I first started the business, I thought it was going to be itinerary planning and like helping people plan where to go and what to do, and quickly realized that what they were asking me was if they could send me the decorations and if I would set them up for them.
Okay.
And so the itinerary building part of it sort of kind of wasn't the reason why I started the business didn't end up being like our core offering, right? Yeah. And so people were sending me all these decorations and getting boxes to my condo. And it was like, all these different things. And I started noticing trends, Final Fiesta, Scottsdale Before the Veil, all these different trends. And so, during, and this was before COVID. So then during COVID, kind of have some time to think and reflect. And I kind of thought, why don't I do these themes?
Yeah.
They're buying these decorations on Amazon or Etsy or whatever.
Yeah.
I could buy them and reuse them.
Oh yeah. I always feel bad trashing them after, because it's like, but I'm not going to bring it back. Like,
right. What are you going to do with this?
What are we going to do?
Final Fiesta
And once it's been someone's theme, it's not going to be in your friend group again, probably.
Exactly. So it was about like, well, if we're getting multiple requests for these themes, why don't we create packaged themes, sell those, so that not only does it come with the service, but it also comes with all the products that come with it.
Love it.
And that's really when we started to see that decorating business skyrocket, because I think the easier you make it for your customers to just pick, and especially if you're a maid of honor planning a bachelorette party, you've got so much to worry about. And you're like, oh, this comes with everything, and it's a really cute theme, like, and we haven't done it in our friend group. Like, yes, we're doing it.
Yeah. Okay. Super cool. Do you like kind of predict what's coming the following years, so you can be like, we're launching Space Cowboy or whatever it is, right, in the coming years? Because it does seem that certain years have certain trends in your industry.
Absolutely. Because like you said, once too many people do a certain theme, no one wants to do it anymore. So you've got to keep sort of innovating and figuring out what's next. And so, we kind of take it, I mentioned we do the choose your own theme option.
Okay.
So we kind of take that as a hint. So if we're getting like, oh, you don't have this Barbie theme, or you don't have Vouv Before Vows, like, can you do that for us? We'll say yes. And then we'll do it. And then if we get a couple more requests, like, we should just add this on as a staple theme.
Yep.
And so there's been several themes that, we've gotten from our clients requesting them. And I think that's where a lot of our services have come from, is people just requesting things.
Yeah.
Another example of that we do now is table and chair rentals for like hibachi chef or private chef night.
Oh yeah, that's so cool. The hibachi at your house.
We're doing that this Sunday actually for a team outing. So it's gonna be really fun. But that's been a wildly popular this year, as everyone wants to do the hibachi chef.
Yeah.
And so, but one of the things is the hibachi chef company doesn't provide tables and chairs. The Airbnbs typically have like a 6-person dining room.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, why don't we start offering tables and chairs? And before you know it, we're renting, dozens of tables and chairs every single weekend in addition to the decorating. So I think, that's something I've learned, is like, listen to what your customers need and what they're requesting, and then think about how can you incorporate that. Does that make sense for you to incorporate it into your business?
My mind is going right now to like the hibachi thing.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I've seen that on like a Housewives episode, right? And so I feel like, are there any shows or people on social media that you see, like, they kind of, even though it's not Bachelorette, but it's like somewhat correlated that you're seeing like, hey, we see this on this, and then we see a lot of girls requesting it, right?
Not necessarily like any particular influencer or things like that, but that is where we get a lot of our inspiration is from social media, whether it's the design of things or whether it's services or products. You know, if there's already a demand out there for it, then we want to be on it, right? Yeah. I think we've been hesitant to be the first mover on things because you can invest a lot of money to like do a theme that you think is really great, but if it doesn't catch on for other people, then, you know, then there's no market for it, right? And so I think that's where we really try to be like, okay, well, what are the trends? What are people wanting? What are people asking for? Yeah. Okay. And you know, there are the first movers that see it and do it, and then other people see it and they start asking for it. That's when we jump on it and decide to do it.
Hey, it's Isabel. Thanks for listening to the Young Boss podcast. I recently wrote a book called Young Boss, and it's filled with top tips I've learned over the years on how to survive and thrive in business. Pre-order your copy now by heading to the link in the podcast description. Now, back to the show. What does marketing look like? Do you put marketing dollars out there? Is it heavy social media? Obviously, your URL is amazing. We were talking about that before, that there's a whole industry of people who just buy URLs and then sit on them and wait for someone to come buy them. But you really, that's like incredible, right? It's like a no-brainer URL. Not that someone's typing it in right away, but when they're on Google and they're typing in Bachelorette in Scottsdale or Scottsdale Bachelorette, boom. You're right there. What does marketing look like? Do you have to put a lot of dollars out there, or is it a lot of word of mouth?
We get both, actually. So just like you said with Scottsdale Bachelorette, I named the company Scottsdale Bachelorette for search engine optimization. I used to work at Yelp, so I knew how important some of those keywords were. And, you know, we talked to businesses that, you know, called themselves like AAA Auto Repair for the phone book reasons, right? Yeah. And, you know, the same thing's the true today. You have to think about what people are searching and how are they going to find your business, because, you know, my business, we're not getting word of mouth referrals to locals and, you know, that type of thing. 100% of our clients are from out of town. So the way that they're looking for a service like ours is that they're going to search it, whether it's on Google or TikTok or Instagram. And so quickly I said, let's do Scottsdale Bachelorette. So we do get really great traffic and business from our organics, but I'm not afraid to spend money on advertising, you know, whether it's Google AdWords or, you know, Instagram or TikTok. Every time I've done a campaign, it seemed to have paid off really well. About what are you willing to spend? And then if you can properly track it as well. So we do paid social media. I also have a social media company that does produces our reels and our TikToks and our posts and things like that. So that's great to kind of offload that to someone who's an expert at it. But it's, you know, that, and then also the referrals, right, from the Airbnb hosts. If we have those partnerships and they're telling their guests about us, that's amazing referrals for us as well.
Have you had any return customers?
We have, yeah. We've had a few, yeah. We've had a few that, you know, they used us for one of their other group friends and then they're coming back for their own or another group friend and they're like, we have to do this again. They'll do a different theme, of course, or something like that. But absolutely, we've had a couple, not super often, but we've had them.
Is there any distinct markets that you find you get a lot of customers from?
New York, actually. Like as far as location, you mean? Yeah, New York. We get so many people from New York. I think they're sick of Florida because it's like everyone from New York goes to Florida all the time. So they want to try somewhere new.
That's funny. My 3 New York bachelorettes I went to, they were all Florida.
Oh, wow. Yeah. See,
my 3 New York girls.
Yep. So I'm sure they go there a lot too, but yeah, I think New York, definitely. We get a lot of people from that area.
That.
New York, New Jersey.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I'm thinking when it comes to expanding and growth. Yeah. Do you have any like specific plans like that you're like, I really want to go this direction. This is what I know is going to be coming up.
Yeah, so we're definitely in the next year, we're going to dive more into the activities, excursions, experiences, things like that. Not for us to provide ourselves, but to be able to promote and monetize better on our referral business. So to give you an idea, we get about 200,000 visitors to the website every single year. Wow. And, you know, last year we did about 850 decor setups. So that shows you that a very small percentage of the people that come to our website actually book like our core services that we make the most money off of. Yeah. And so, you know, constantly thinking about ways, well, how do we monetize that traffic? And so that's been one really great way is, you know, I talked about the hibachi chef, for instance, earlier. We get 10% for every single booking that comes through our website. Okay. So it's like, how do we do that for more experiences and more partners? Mm-hmm. And there's actually an app and website out there called The Batch. I don't know if you've heard about it, but they're kind of like a TripAdvisor / Viator, if you've ever heard of those ones, where you can book tours and things like that through it. But they do that specifically for bachelorette parties. And so they do that in several markets. And so, you know, for us, to be Scottsdale Bachelorette and have these great experiences, it's like, well, why don't we give people more things that they can book directly through us? So that's definitely one. We also just launched like a shuttle transportation service. So we bought a Mercedes Sprinter van, and we're starting to, do airport runs and things like that. So just trying to think about all the different things that people do to spend money or have activities and excursions and experiences, and how can we either offer it ourselves or, be part of the booking process to be able to monetize off of that.
Yeah. How does your company, and even just in your industry, it's kind of tough because I assume that anyone else who's doing this, it's like their competition, but do you have any like community, like and do you guys play nice together, or is it pretty dog eat dog?
Locally, not so much. In other markets, though, I would say yes.
Okay.
So I definitely have, networked and worked with, one in Napa, for instance, and another one in Nashville. And we've talked about getting together for like some type of, summit or something like that, just to share best practices and things like that. So there is somewhat of a community. I think that there's more of a community between myself and all the other experience providers, since we're all serving the same client, right? Yeah. So for instance, the Cabana Boys, I don't know if you've heard of the Cabana Boys, but they're a really great, they're pool guys that come and they throw like an at-home pool party, and they serve drinks and play games with the girls and things like that. Super fun. But, the owner of that, Nelson, like we've worked together a lot and, kind of brainstormed and did partnerships together and things like that to help benefit both of our businesses.
Yeah, I love it. If somebody wanted to get started in this business, what should they do first?
I would say, and I would probably say this for any business, is just start it. Like just pick a service, build a website for free somewhere, get your information out there, create a social media, and just start offering it. Yeah. I think at very first, I charged very, very little. Okay. And to the point where I was like, oh, this is just like pocket money for a dinner or something like that. It really wasn't worth my time for what I valued my time as. Exactly. Okay. And so I thought of every dollar that I got as just extra money versus like I spent 4 hours on this and it's not worth it. I think just with going with that mentality, do something that you really love and start offering it, and then listen for feedback and see what people tell you, right? Or what they ask for. Because I think when I started it, I went in this mentality of like, oh, it's going to be an itinerary planning business, but then quickly realized that there's these other things that people actually want in the same market.
Yeah. I'm thinking that as you've grown in this and as things have changed over the years, that things, obviously now you're doing so many parties, right? 30 or 40 a week, right? That now it's serious money. Yeah. So when did you get to the point where you were like, this went from pocket change to like, oh, I think I can quit my job?
It was probably the spring of 2020, which is
so 2 years.
Yeah. So in August of 2020 is when I actually left my full-time job to take the business full-time. And it was sort of in the spring. And what I noticed, I was getting all these requests that I couldn't fulfill because I had this full-time job. And I said, well, I'm turning away business. There's something here that I'm saying no to. And what do I want to do? Right. And obviously there's a ton of fear and a lot of decision-making that goes into that, because I had a great job. I loved the people that I worked with. I never really thought of this company being what it is today, but there was something tugging on me, when you have that feeling as an entrepreneur, where you're like, there's something there and I have to explore it. I would regret it if I didn't at least try. Yeah. And I also thought to myself, like, well, what's the worst thing that could happen, right? Yeah. I've got a nest egg of a little bit of money that'll last me a year if I get no sales. Yep. If I could live with my mom if I needed to, right? So like all the things that you're afraid of, typically you make up in your head. They're like these terrible doomsday scenarios that don't actually would never happen. Yeah. And so I think just letting go of that fear and then, making that decision to take it full time. Yeah.
I think that's actually really cool, because there's so many people who are afraid of like the what if and what happens. So you did have some savings set. Yes. How much of your own money did you have to use to start this? Because it sounds like a lot of it is kind of, you got to do it as you went along. Yes. Right?
Yeah. I sort of had an overlap, right? Instead of just like cutting loose and spending all my money on this new endeavor. Yeah. Yeah.
Which I think is a really smart way to go about it, because if I was to get into this, I think I would have done the opposite. I would have been like, here's my 5 themes, buy everything, right? And then it's like, oh shit, no one wanted that theme. And now I just wasted all this money on this. Yeah. So I think it's really smart. It's kind of like, see what the market's asking for, because also every location is probably going to ask for different things. Yeah. the girls who are doing it in Aspen want completely different things than the girls who are in Jackson Hole, right?
Yep.
So what does that location, what themes do they want? What activities do they want? And kind of just hearing from the audience first, what they're looking for. So kind of go slow.
Yeah.
Take it that way. And then do you suggest that people kind of do it like while they have something else going on, or like balls to the walls?
I think it worked really well for me because it all depends on, I think for me, it wasn't like when I started it, I wasn't like, I need to make this work type of a thing, right? There was no desperation to make it work. It was just something that I really liked doing. And I just started putting it out there, and I found myself investing a good amount of time outside of my full-time job to do it. And once you start building momentum, then I was able to say, okay, now I feel like I'm finally at the point where I could switch this.
Yeah.
And I think it would have been a lot scarier. I mean, I started the business right before COVID. So thank God I didn't quit my full-time job and do that full-time. It would have been terrible.
Yeah.
But I think if you as an entrepreneur can do both, if you have a full-time job and you can start doing this on the side, maybe you have plans of in 1 or 2 or 3 years to make it a full-time thing, why not do both, right? Yep. If you have the time and effort and resources to do it. And then if it doesn't work out, it's not because you didn't put everything into it. Just make sure that you put in the amount that you're happy with and that you can.
Yeah. Was your family cool with you quitting? Did you get any pushback?
I mean, I got a couple people that thought I was kind of crazy, and, because I did have a great job. And so it was hard to walk away from that. And I think people also were like, what? Bachelorette parties? Like, it doesn't sound like it's a market.
Yeah.
Because it's so niche.
It is very niche.
I'm in one city and I'm doing bachelorette parties. It's very niche. But I think that's what was so great about it is, no one else was doing it that well. Yeah. And I saw the opportunity and I saw that there was a market for it. And I knew that there was something there. I just had to try to make it happen. Yeah.
They call it blue ocean or white space. It's like find a market that basically nobody's in. Yeah. And like you will dominate it, because if you're the first one there, it's like it's all yours. Exactly. Right? Everything's yours. So I think that's really cool. Now it feels like, I'm sure there's, you know better than me, I'm sure there's a lot of competitors popping up every single day. Yes. Who are trying to do what you're doing, but you're the first, you're the best, you're the this, you're the that. Yeah. Because you were the first to take that risk and make it happen. And so I think that's exciting, but there's still so many. It's an industry that is ever changing. Exactly. And so what's number 1, 2, and 3 today, in 5, 10 years, it might not be number 1, 2, and 3. Yeah. Right. And so there's always new markets. So somebody could still take this idea and then be looking ahead. What are hot markets that are popping up? Are you seeing any specific locations that are popping up that you're like? Well, Charleston is actually one of them that's popped up. Savannah, Georgia is another one. Yeah. So there's some interesting, quieter, towns type of a thing, but nothing like Scottsdale in terms of the nightlife and the, the fact that it's got everything that it has to offer. So I haven't seen that pop up as much, but I think the competitors actually they're great. I actually love competitors whenever they pop up, because I'm like, ooh, well, what are they doing? And we can do some of those things too, or whatever it is, or, it sort of gives you a good benchmark against well, what are they doing better than me and what am I doing better than them? And I think that that's really good. If I didn't have that, it's how could you learn that and figure out how to change? Oh yeah. How has social media played a role in getting clients? Because I for sure am on Bachelorette TikTok, and mind you, I think only one of my friends is yet to still get married. Everyone's been married, right? Still getting them. But I'm still on Bachelorette TikTok for some reason. And they have, these parties look amazing, right? But these girls are throwing all across the country the coolest themes, the coolest this, the coolest that, but especially TikTok has really, I think, elevated what I'm seeing as a consumer in the Bachelorette world. So how has social media played a role, good, bad, and ugly in what you do? It's been phenomenal. When I started, it was all about posting something on Instagram for the look of it. Yeah. Right. Instagram's very polished. It's very slick. It's very showing the best of things. Yeah. And so when we created, we're using filters and we're doing all these things to make our products look amazing, which they do. But I think that was sort of the initial thing. Now it's completely different. If you try to copy that model over to TikTok, it
completely fails.
Yeah.
And so you have to think about, how do you talk to the TikTok audience? What information are you putting out that's now educational or entertaining or things like that, where on Instagram, like that wasn't how we started. So you have to evolve. And also, people are doing so many searches on TikTok now, right?
It's like the new Google.
Yes. So people are searching that. So what content are you putting out there? We have to make sure we're thinking about, we got to be putting out the top 10 places to eat. And we have to be putting out like, a day in the life of what it's like to work at our Scottsdale Bachelorette, and all these things that people will discover us for and then realize that our services, rather than just putting our service out there.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, you've got to put out these different nuggets and different aspects of your life and your business that people will want to follow along.
Yeah. Since when you started, right, you were doing it all. You were very hands-on. I know I have a similar experience in my business. Has that impacted the employees that you're hiring? Do they respect you more? Do you feel like there's any sort of like, they know how passionate you are about this because this is your baby? Like, do you think it impacts it?
I definitely think so. And to this day, I still make time every single week to somehow be involved in the week-to-week operations. For our business, like every Thursday is like Black Friday in the retail world, because it's like everyone's checking in on Thursday.
Yeah.
So that's the day that we're booked from like 7:30 till 8 p.m., 7:30 in the morning till 8 p.m.
Wow.
Doing setups back to back to back. And so I think, for me, not only is it helpful because I want to be able to show credibility to my team, like, hey, I'm out there grinding with you. I'm not just like, hey, go and do this work and I'm not going to do it.
Right.
But it also has helped me learn tremendously of like where the shortcomings are, where I'm like, we're doing this. This isn't working. How could this be better? And I feel like not only does it give me that credibility, but it also gives me really important insights to like make decisions going forward.
Couldn't agree more, because I feel like it's one thing when you hear complaints from your employees and you're just like, but come on,
Yeah.
And then it's another thing when you like sit a day in their life and you're like, oh my God, that took us 4 times longer.
Yeah.
And if we would have done XYZ, we could have done it like that. But you wouldn't have learned that unless you took the time to go live a day in their shoes.
Yeah. Or things that they don't even complain about necessarily, or things that I just see as opportunities.
Oh, this is just part of the job.
This is just what we do. And you're like, they're fine with it. And I'm like, wow, we could do this 20% faster if we did this in advance or whatever it is. And so that's one of our core values, is efficiency, is like, how can we just shave off time and make our lives easier when we're out there trying to do all these parties? So
I love that. When it comes to pricing, have you ever like had clients who are like, oh, we really can't make that work with our budget? Like, how does that work? Do you have lower tier products where it's like, well, I'll just do these things, and then you have the full shebang, I'm doing everything, you just show up, right?
Yeah. So when I first launched the packages, it was, each theme was a set price, and there was one package to choose from, and that was it. And again, going back to like listening to what the clients want, there's some people that are like, that's a little bit expensive for us. Could we remove these things from the package and just do this? And so then I quickly realized, well, maybe there should be different tiers within each level, right? So now we have a basic, a deluxe, and a VIP.
Okay.
And so now, for the spenders, they can spend the money. If they got the budget and they want the full shebang, they can do the VIP. Most people are doing the deluxe, and that's why I built that package around that. And then for the more budget conscious people, we've got a basic package, right? So it's much lighter, it's quicker for us to do, less resources, and that allows us to serve more clients. So
How do you get feedback from the girls after they've done it to then basically say, because I would be worried, like, especially on those first parties, like, oh my God, are they having fun? Right? And then it's like, did they have fun? Did they get in okay? Did everything work out? Was everything to their... So how do you get feedback from them? And then how has that impacted what you do for the next, parties?
Yeah, absolutely. So after every party, I think it's like 24 or 48 hours, they get an automated text from us that says like, hey, if you had a great experience, like, please write us a review. If you didn't, please text us back and let us know what went wrong, right? Because I think we don't want to direct them to write a review and then it's a bad review, right? It's like, we want a chance, first of all, to like correct what was wrong. But then we also need to learn what didn't go right so that we can make sure that it's fixed in the future. So like a good example of that is like pool floats. We rent out pool floats, but sometimes there's a small leak in them, and we'll fill them out. And
when they get there, it's... Okay.
The flamingo head is like, all deflated. And sometimes they wouldn't tell us about it because they're like, okay, well, they would just go about their weekend. It's not the end of the world type of a thing. But, if we're able to collect that feedback at the end and be like, oh, actually, everything was great, but, 2 of the pool floats deflated or something like that. Then it's like, okay, well, great. Let me rectify that for you. I'm happy to offer you, something for that, because that wasn't the experience we were trying to provide.
Yep.
Then it's also like, okay, well, if the pool floats are fading, how do we fix that, right?
Yeah.
Let's blow them up first when we get there so that by the time we leave, we know if there's a leak in them, right? Like little things like that. And you just make these course corrections in your business to try to avoid any future negative experiences.
Yeah. How important, I assume, especially with other people doing the setups, that systems are key in your business.
Yeah.
Like it's like exactly like you're saying. Pool toys go first, then this, then that. Even packing the vans, right? Like we need to pack it this way so we can fit everything and things don't break and whatever the case. How important have systems been in your business?
Extremely important. And that's something that like gets me excited. I've always worked, like when I worked at my tech startups, it was always about like building a process from scratch that didn't exist. And, you know, when I first started the business, I would bring everything to the house and do everything on site. So I blow up all the balloons on site. I would string all the letter balloons on site. I do everything on site. But then once we got to a point of like, well, how do we fit in more parties? We have to do more in advance and we have to do more planning in advance. So now, you know, every single party has a bucket that we pack on like Monday or Tuesday of the week, right? So it's got the right number of cups, the right number of straws, the right number, everything that we need, right? We do the balloon garlands the day before the party so that they're nice and fresh, but they're already done. We know that we can fit a certain number in the van, right? We've got an app now that auto organizes our route and text messages clients. So like all these systems that we've built into place so that it makes our lives easier and it also allows us to build and scale. And I think we're constantly looking for ways. You always have to question like, is the way that I'm doing it now the right way, the best way? And you have to always look at what you're doing and think about like what tweaks or changes could I make to make this better, not only for the client, but for ourselves and for our team.
Do you have team meetings like that where you're like, hey, like I need everybody to innovate right now? How do we make this go faster? How do we make this cheaper or whatever?
We talk about it a lot just on the daily, I would say, or at the end of the day when we talk about something that goes wrong, we tend to do like an informal debrief just to be like, okay, well, what went wrong there and how can we prevent that in the future? And then that way it's right away, because sometimes, you know, we go home and we forget about it and it will never make it to a meeting if we were to have something like that. So I think that sort of like real-time feedback with the team has been super important.
How many team members do you have right now?
We have 15 team members.
Wow.
Yeah. So 2 of them are full-time and the rest are part-time that help us primarily with setups and things like that. But it's been great. They're an amazing team.
If you don't want to share, you don't have to, but how are you doing financially? Like, are you profitable and how much are you making right now?
I won't share how much I'm making, but we definitely are profitable. I think going back to when we talked about like expanding to more cities or things like that, you know, I think when I started the business, one of the things that my coach taught me is, you know, what are you trying to get out of owning your own business? And, you know, I think constantly chasing wealth isn't in my DNA. It's all about having extra time, being able to go on vacation, spending time with my loved ones, things like that. Like that's what makes me happy. If I can live comfortably and, you know, those types of things, then I'm happy. And so cool, if I can find more ways to make more money, but that's not what I'm chasing necessarily. It's more about, you know, I'm so happy right now. Like that the fact that I started this business and it's doing so well and like I couldn't be happier. And I think about if I were to launch more cities and things like that, that would take so much extra effort and work that I could make a lot more money if I were to do this in 10 or 15 cities, but I don't want to do that. You know, it's all about, I think, figuring out what are you doing this business for? What's the reasons that you're doing it? And are you achieving happiness, whether that's financial or, you know, whatever other parts of your life?
100%. It sounds like your personal vision, right, of time freedom and spending time with the people that you love and want. It's like your business now is giving you what you need in your personal life. So you're like at a happy place where it's like, we can expand and grow here, but it's not like, oh, let's go crazy and let's turn this into like all 50 states locations. You know, so I love that. You have to know yourself and what you want. And there's so many people who run businesses who are not happy. So to be able to say, like, look around and say, I love my team. I love what I do. I feel invigorated by what I do. And even speaking to you, I can tell that in just your energy, I feel like everyone who's watching can probably feel it too. You do love this. Like you love this. And
everything about it is fun. And that's what's so cool is like, I love the work that I do. We get to provide these amazing experiences for these groups and they have such a great time and they get to see everything in Scottsdale. The people that we work with love doing it. It is hard work. Obviously we're out there sweating. It's like 110 degrees and we're like carrying in balloons. And like carrying in groceries and it's not easy by any means. It's not glamorous. A lot of times people like reach out to us. They're like, we want to work for you. Like looks like so fun. like you're not part of the bachelorette party. You're in all the sweat and effort that goes into making it happen.
You don't get to actually party. You know that, right?
Yeah. we do a little bit of that, like as team bonding, but like for the vast majority, no. You're like sweating and athleisure wear all day.
Yeah. You're like, do you like to work out?
Yeah.
Yes or no?
Yeah, pretty much. So I think going back to your point, it's like, it's about finding what are the reasons that you're doing this business and creating it, and making sure that when you're doing the business that you're getting that satisfaction, because sometimes if you're doing too much, you need to scale it back and say no to more people or take less business because you're not achieving the things that you set out to do as an entrepreneur. That's why you took that journey. So you need to make sure that the cost benefit analysis of the job that you're doing is worth it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Obviously, when me and my girlfriends have been planning our own, friends' bachelorette parties, there's a ton of waste, right? Yeah. You buy all these decorations, all these, little outfits, and even the food. And then it's just like, after the party, it's like, okay, well, we don't really need this again. And you feel bad throwing it away. But so how has, that impacted your business, like focusing on sustainability?
Yeah, well, I think when I launched the packages, that was exactly what I had in mind was, okay, these groups are buying these decor items and then they're just throwing them away, when if I buy them, I can reuse them. And then not only does that help my business on the profit margin side, but also that's, really great for the environment, right? Think about all the waste that we're saving by being able to reuse some balloons, reuse signs, reuse all these things. Yep. And then when it comes to the food, we noticed the same thing, where at the end of the weekend, we would go back to the Airbnbs to break down the decorations. They're like, we have all this food and all this booze and all this stuff, like, and we were like, okay, well, we're not going to take home like, all these Cheetos, like type of a thing. Like we're okay. And so we actually ended up partnering with the Hope Women's Center to be able to donate some of those food items to them, because we're constantly thinking about like, well, how can we give back to the community? How can we, and I think it's a great cause too, because they're a center that helps, underprivileged women in Arizona. And so, to be able to say like, okay, this group coming in from New York, they're able to kind of help out locally as well. So I think, we're constantly trying to think about what can we reuse of our own materials so that it's saving the environment, but then also what's happening with the waste. How are we disposing that or recycling it in the best way that we can?
That is amazing. And I'm sure you personally have an endless supply of White Claws at your house.
Yes. I don't know when the last time I bought alcohol has been.
I feel like that's what's always left, is like, you think you didn't buy enough alcohol and then it's just like alcohol everywhere. And you're just like, I guess we'll leave it. Like, I don't know what to do with this.
One time it was like 2 carfuls of food and alcohol for this group of like 10. I'm like, you're here for 72 hours. Like you will be in the hospital if you even tried to drink all this alcohol. And not to mention, like, you're going to go out and drink out at other places. Yeah.
Right. Like, how much do you need before you go? Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. I love it. But that is amazing that you're able to do that. And such again, probably something that you didn't even maybe think about right away. But then as soon as you saw it as a problem, it's like, how do we turn this into a solution and to help others?
Absolutely.
In a beautiful way to tie it all together. How can our listeners find out about you?
Absolutely. So if anyone wants to follow us on social media, we are Scottsdale Bachelorette on both Instagram and TikTok, or you can check out our website, scottsdalebachelorette.com.
Awesome. I think I already follow you on everything because I just like watching bachelorette parties. It's just such a fun time. It's a good vibe. So thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Yeah. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Young Boss Podcast with me, Isabel Garino. Be sure to like, share, and follow on Instagram and TikTok, and let me know, where are you going to plan your next bachelorette for your friend or family member, or maybe even yourself. Remember, youth is your power.